Hello. I'm with you again to talk about loving your neighbor. We're on one of the final conversations on loving your neighbor through using a book called Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Before I get to it, let me tell you, the world seems to have gone a little crazier than normal. There seems to be people in neighborhoods hurting one another. And I find it absolutely amazing. You can walk beside your neighbor or be in the same neighborhood. And while they might be not of the same background as you, color of skin, or religious affiliation, there is something in almost every major religion that tells us to love our neighbor. So, why isn't this taking place? If we look to the New Testament, we can go to John, who writes these words in John 15:13. God, greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. Greater love, greater love. Isn't that what we're supposed to be striving for? Laying down our life for those around us? And if you think, well, I'm not sure I like John's interpretation. Okay, let's go to the Old Testament and read a little bit from Proverbs where it says hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. What has happened to humanity that we can't love one another? Today, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about loving one another without coming off as some kind of weirdo or some kind of radical. It's an idea that I contemplate often. It's an idea that I kind of lean in to this Gary Chapman book about love languages, because loving somebody in a way that doesn't they don't experience as love is not actually love. It's just a self-serving transaction. We have to think about how people want to be loved, what their needs are, and how we can love them in ways that they can come to know the love of Jesus Christ. Now, we talked about these five love languages already. We've talked about words of affirmation, which are saying supportive things. We've talked about acts of service, which are doing helpful things. We've talked about receiving gifts or the giving of gifts that tell someone you're thinking about them and they receive it that way. We've talked about quality time, spending meaningful time with folks. And now today we're going to talk about a physical touch. A physical touch is a physical expression of love. There are two types of love here. One's intimate and one's non-intimate, and this is where I think a lot of people get really caught up in this, because it's hard to think about how I can be in contact with my neighbor without somehow offending them or not creating a human resources issue at work, or not being told that you're some kind of creep just because you want to hug a neighbor. I mean, this is tough stuff. And so today we just want to talk about it with open ears and open minds. And we want to talk about how we can love people in a way that they can receive it, especially those who feel love and experience love by physical touch. Now, it may seem straightforward. It's easy. Okay, we know what physical touch is, Bob. We don't really need to have a lesson on this. But physical touch is one of those things that can get misunderstood fairly quickly. And for our purposes of loving our neighbor, I think we actually do need a larger explanation of what it means to use physical touch in loving our neighbor. Now, physical touch is too often connected with sex because it releases oxytocin, the love hormone. However, it offers us many connections that the other love languages don't. Physical contact is a basic human need. Emotional, mental, and physical benefits come from it. From the moment of birth, babies need to cling, suckle, and rest on the caregivers. This practice forms a great bond and is kind of at the heart of all family relationships and the social structure. We all need it to survive. Just remember Castaway, where he needed it to talk to Wilson, the volleyball. He needed contact. We all need contact. Even as we age, touch remains a critical component of our social and emotional growth. One study found that students are 3 times as likely to speak up in class when their teacher pats them on the back in a friendly manner. Isn't that amazing? A little bit of physical touch can mean that big of a difference. It's not only humans that need touch. Primates often pick at each other's fur throughout the day. It has been observed that baby bamboos are groomed and groom one another roughly 17% of all of their waking hours. That touch means something. It helps ease tension in social situations. There are studies that have proven that touch signals trust and safety. It soothes. A basic warm touch actually reduces cardiovascular stress. It activates the body's vagus nerve, which is intimately involved with our compassionate responses. So, a simple touch, a handshake, a back rub, a hug for 20 seconds or more creates a lasting bond. We are biologically wired to welcome touch from someone and through that touch reduce the level of stress in our bodies. Pretty amazing. Now, the basics of physical touch begin with that sensation that's signaled when you touch someone. The receptors in the skin. It travels along the sensory nerves, bundled up in your fibers and through the neurons into the spinal cord and up through your brain, releasing things. Signals a move to the thalamus, which relays the information to the rest of the brain, which triggers the release of serotonin, and the hormone that actually regulates happiness is now spilled into the body. Physical touch increases the levels of dopamine and serotonin, two neurotransmitters that help regulate your mood and relieve stress and anxiety. Dopamine is also known to regulate your pleasure center in your brain, and it can offset feelings of anxiety. So just a small hug, a touch to someone can do so much, and yet we run away from it. We don't want to even admit this. A recent study of cancer patients said that a form of stroking and stretching and squeezing the cancer patients actually relaxes them and increases their dopamine and serotonin levels, that they are now better capable to fight the disease of cancer. Physical touch improves the function of our immune system and reduces the diseases that are associated with heart and blood ailments. All of this from a physical touch. We all need to understand that sharing a physical touch is a love language that's been biologically wired into us, and it is there for the betterment of society. So the larger question is, how do we do this? How do we love our neighbor without, coming off weird or kooky? Can't go around and hug your neighbor for 20 seconds. That would be weird, right? You can't just go up to somebody in a store and say, "Give me a hug, baby." Probably going to get arrested. If you do it at work, might even get worse, right? Human resources and a spot on your record. Who knows what could happen, right? But we need to be aware that 1/5 of the population does actually enjoy physical contact. So, how do we love our neighbor? How do we love in the neighborhood so that people, our neighbors, can experience this sense of pleasure, happiness, if this is their love language? Well, one would be just to always shake someone's hand. That's something my dad taught me early on. Good handshake and a look in the eye, right? Powerful. Something I learned later was an amazing hug can change a relationship. I've never seen this actually happen, but I was told of a story where one gentleman was on the side of a soccer field and it was getting pretty heated, and he just turned to one of the other players and said, "I think you need a hug. Come here." Now, I don't know what happened in that moment, but I find it kind of humorous because maybe the guy did need a hug. Sometimes physical touch can come just next to someone. Just sitting next to them and having a conversation, a casual touch. "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" Pat on the back. "Glad you're here." All of those kind of moments can create distinct connections and let them know you care. Another way is to dance with someone. You know, that basic dance can provide a release of serotonin and dopamine. I've got a good friend who's a professional dancer, actually a semi-professional dancer. And he says, dancing is powerful if you do it well, but it's powerful because you're in contact with another human being for a longer period of time, and after a while you can manage one another's flow. And I said, yeah, but sometimes that whole dirty dancing thing on TV gets people a little weirded out. And he said, well, what most people don't understand is dancers enjoy one another's company and enjoy participating in the event. And most of them have a rule that they will not date other dancers because it ruins the connection. How about that, right? So what could we do? Well, we could dance with our neighbors, right? Backyard parties, have some fun, spin them around, laughing, joking. We can go out walking with our neighbors and casually just let them know, hey, that was awesome. Shake their hand beforehand or afterward, maybe pray together. Who knows? It's up to you. Or even playing sports with neighbors, right? Sometimes you're going to come into contact with a neighbor. Sometimes it's just high-fiving, fist bumps, chest bumps. I don't know. But all of those things can create the physical connection and let that other person know they're loved. Now, I share all of this. I share it all right now with a warning. If you thrive on touch, it may be hard to understand a person who is uncomfortable being touched. For people who grew up in a family or a culture that didn't express affection through touch, this whole idea might take some getting used to. So be careful. Always, always ask permission before you touch another human being. Please recognize that some people have suffered real trauma or abuse at the hands of others physically. And they have a hard time expressing or receiving any touch, even from people they trust deeply. So make sure you always ask permission. But don't let it stop you. If you see someone in your neighborhood who's always slapping somebody on the back, always got a great handshake, always about a fist pump, a high five, a chest bump, whatever it might be, or just says, give me a hug today, brother, recognize that's probably their love language, and you ought to figure out how to engage in it if you're truly going to love your neighbor in ways that they will receive as love. Let's go change the world today. Let's love neighbors through one of the 5 love languages. I hope to hear your story sometime soon. Have a great day.